Hello, everybody. Welcome to another discussion with Valuechain Innovation Cluster. So today we have Luke from Warwick Manufacturing Group with us, and we're discussing a very interesting topic around supply chain resilience. So, Luke, welcome to the show. Do you want to
Thank you.
give a quick introduction?
Yeah, so my name's Luke Bellamy. I work in the Supply Chain Research Group at the University of Warwick, specifically within the department of Warwick Manufacturing Group, which is one of the largest departments here at the university. And we specialise particularly in work with industry, looking to support them with whatever challenges they've got. And within the supply chain research group at the moment, our main focus is around supply chain sustainability and supply chain resilience, which is subject areas I particularly work on as well.
Great. So, Luke, firstly, why is supply chain resilience such an important topic? As the fact that your team's researching on that and been researching on that for a little bit, some time on this now, right?
One of these words that you're starting to hear more and more these days. It's potentially 5 years ago or before then, you wouldn't have heard it at all. Since the pandemic, it has become quite a hot topic. And when we're talking about resilience, what we're really talking about is risk. Organizations have a lot of risks that they deal with on a daily basis, and those risks can stem from all sorts of areas. They can be in your operations, they can be to do with your reputation, and those risks can have a very small impact on your business, or they can have absolutely catastrophic impacts on your business. And supply chain resilience is largely about not so much predicting the risk, but trying to understand exactly what you're good at in order to avoid or diminish the risk in the first place. So whether you're able to more or less have the capabilities to deal with any issue that may come across you.
Yeah. So that's an interesting thing, right? I mean, as we have seen definitely since the pandemic, specifically, supply chains were massively disrupted to a scale that people were not expecting that. And beyond that as well, with different global events happening with the Red Sea crisis, the Suez Canal, the Baltimore incident, the Ukraine war, they might be happening in different parts of the world, but they all start to impact your supply chains, right? I think one of the things we see when we are speaking to companies, SMEs specifically, is a lot of SMEs on principle feel that supply chain resilience might not be a topic relevant to them because they're too small for it. Do you get any similar feedback, or is that a little bit of not really being aware of actual risks that are relevant for even SMEs and not just larger OEMs?
Well, yeah, it's a really good question. SMEs are particularly, they're in a unique position, right? Their size means that they can potentially do things quite quickly that large organizations are sort of weighed down by. But alternatively, they might not necessarily have the resources and the capacity to deal with some of the things that may need to be dealt with. Now, risk comes in all sorts of shapes and sizes, and an SME may well excel in some areas and be able to deal with potential risks that could occur in the future a lot better than a larger organization might, just simply due to their size. So in some regards, SMEs are disadvantaged, but actually in other ways they're advantaged.
Absolutely. I think one of the most interesting things for me personally has been to look from the context of, we saw in the news earlier in the year where Teslas couldn't make cars because they couldn't get chips delivered because of the crisis going on.
Yeah.
On the other side, they are making autonomous driverless cars, which is using loads and loads of data to be able to make real time prediction. So
Yeah.
if a company can make real time prediction to actually predict everything that can go wrong and drive a car, yet cannot predict that they won't be able to actually manufacture cars because of the shortages or other influences that might happen, and be able to prepare better towards that. That seems, you know, quite interesting as a concept, right?
Yeah, it's a very interesting concept, and to be honest, it's data is king when it comes to being able to make decisions, but it's also the quality of that data as well that's really important. And sometimes quality can stem from a lot of different places, and in essence, the strength of your relationships, and particularly those within your supply chain, can feed into the quality of that data as well. So organizations, regardless of size, sort of relating back to the SME, if they can develop those deep and meaningful relationships with their suppliers and their stakeholders, then if they can get that quality data, that means that they have a good horizon scanning, which means that they can potentially reduce their risks.
Absolutely. I think that brings us to a good point about the work that WMG has done with Digital Supply Chain Hub and with Value Chain supporting you guys on the Supply Chain Resilience toolkit that's been built. Would you like to tell a little bit more about what it is and who is it relevant for?
Yeah, sure. So we have been developing a comprehensive supply chain resilience assessment, and we've called it the Supply Chain Resilience Navigator. It was funded by Digital Catapult, and Valuechain very kindly put it together for us. And in essence, it is designed to give you an idea as to how good you are at dealing with different types of aspects, I should say, of resilience. So it doesn't really look at risk by risk cases. It looks at what you're good at, what you're bad at in terms of how good you are at planning, visibility, how well you collaborate, how flexible you are, and a number of other different measures as well. And the questions are fairly high level, but it should give you a really good understanding of both where you're at with supply chain resilience and in relation to your competitors or other people in the industry that are a similar size as well, with the report that's available at the end.
Absolutely. I think that sounds like a very useful self-assessment that companies can do themselves, right? So that they can actually get an understanding. And I think the first point of any improvement is to understand where you are today before you can actually make any changes. And again, I think from the toolkit that's been developed, both from the how much time it takes to be able to do that, and the language utilized is simple enough so that people and companies could actually do it on their own and be able to get obviously advice from the likes of yourselves or from Digital Catapult where necessary for any of the support that is available with that as well. Is there any specific areas that companies should be thinking about when they are thinking about supply chain resilience or risks that they should look at in the first instance normally?
So that really depends on the type of company, and it depends really on what the strengths and weaknesses are of that company. So, whilst you're able to, in essence, establish what your strengths and weaknesses are through the report, there are a series of recommendations in there as well that will help you lift those areas that perhaps you may need focus on.
Perfect. And let's say a company has gone about and done the assessment today. They get a report out of it, so they get a basic understanding of where they are today. And there's obviously recommendations in the report on some of the actions and activities they can take. uh, is there any other resource that's available that once they've done that step that they could go to for either more detailed support or to create more of a roadmap for themselves that, okay, we know where we are today, this is how we can plan to actually go forward?
So within the tool itself, obviously the report itself will give you some in-depth information as to where you're at, the kinds of strategies that you can do in order to improve. But then beyond that, depending on what the needs are of the business, and you can always reach out to WMG in particular to kind of have a bit more of a one-to-one dialogue and conversation about what your strengths and weaknesses are, and see if there's a way that we can support you as well.
Perfect. One of the other questions, obviously, would be useful to understand is when a company is doing this assessment, is it one person from the business that, like the MD, the CEO, or the procurement manager, the supply chain manager, depending on the size of the business, obviously, will it be one person per company doing this assessment and getting a feedback, or would it be multiple people across the business, answering this assessment?
So the assessment's designed in such a way that we're basically asking organisations about their capability, and capability can be a little bit personally perceptive. So
Yeah.
you may have a different opinion from your colleague as to how well you're doing on a particular aspect, and so it can be done at different levels. So a high level or a mid-tier level. That as long as the person working on the assessment has some good understanding of what the supply chain is and how it functions, then they should be able to participate in the assessment. And as a result of that, the system is automatically designed to take that into consideration and produce a score out of the other end of it.
Perfect. So basically, you could have multiple people within the organization with their own perspectives answer the assessment, and then actually get a more holistic output from the assessment, because you're not just relying on one person's opinion, but you're actually getting a bit more within that. Great.
Yeah, precisely.
Is there any last advice that you would like to add to any of the listeners? That they should either think about, and where can they actually access this assessment today?
So the assessment can be accessed in a number of different ways. Valuechain have it available on their platform. You will be able to reach it on the Supply Chain Resilience Hub, which is WMG's own website. So that'll be supplychainresilienchub.com. And then it is also Digital Catapult have their own digital supply chain hub as well, where the tool is hosted. So on each of those places, you'll be able to access it, and ultimately it would all send you through currently to the Valuechain platform. I'm also available on LinkedIn, so if you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn, you will be able to easily find the link to the assessment through my profile if you're struggling. And elsewise, you can always contact the Supply Chain Research Group as well at Warwick if you have any questions or want to take part in the assessment and want to perhaps join one of our workshops where we support you through going through the assessment, which is available until the end of November at the moment.
Okay, perfect. So all the links will be mentioned in the show notes for anybody who needs to access it. And alternatively, obviously, feel free to reach out to either me or Luke on LinkedIn, and we'll can share any information or signpost to anybody as required. So, Luke, thanks for being on this show, and thanks for talking to us about supply chain resilience. I'm sure that a lot of companies are going to find it really useful and derive great value from this.
Great. Thank you, Nishant. Thank you for your time.